Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we slice through the noise to get to the core of what you need to know. Today, we're plunging into a really essential source, the Popular Mechanics Essential Survival Guide. Our mission, to sort of unearth those surprising practical insights and wisdom that could really make a difference in an emergency, big or small.
And that really is the key insight, isn't it? Survival, it's not just about those huge, Hollywood apocalypse scenarios. More often, it's about navigating unexpected everyday challenges with ingenuity, with foresight. This guide really brings that home. It shows how preparedness is about empowering yourself.
Absolutely. It kind of takes that classic childhood dream, maybe like the editor's own inspiration from My Side of the Mountain.
Right, the kid living off the land.
Yeah, exactly. And it expands that idea for the modern world. It shows us how to tackle, everything from a simple power outage to a much bigger natural disaster.
Yeah.
So let's dig in. You'd think with all the news about major disasters, Hurricane Katrina, those awful Midwest tornadoes, the deadly floods we've seen, you'd think everyone would be prepped, right?
You'd think so.
But the guide highlights this stark paradox. There's a 2009 Red Cross study. It found over half of all Americans had experienced some kind of emergency.
Over half. Wow.
Yet only, get this, 12% had taken adequate steps to prepare. Just 12%. That's a huge gap between, experiencing something and actually doing something about it. Why do you think that is? Is it just procrastination or something else?
That's a really crucial question. And what's interesting is the guide doesn't just say be prepared. It tackles that disconnect head on. It emphasizes the first critical step, assessing your personal spectrum of threats. It's not about some vague fear. You need to think, okay, how would this specific scenario impact my home, my daily life?
Right, personalize it.
Exactly. And this goes beyond just, plotting escape routes. It's also about understanding how your critical systems actually work. Your hot water heater, electricity, internet, so you can create backup plans. Or, do specific things for threats like wildfires if you live in that kind of area. It makes it concrete.
That personalized approach is just so crucial, isn't it? And as you start digging into those specifics, the guide introduces some pretty eye-opening terms. It's almost like a whole vocabulary for survival. For instance, there's the BIB. That stands for bug in bag. Basically everything you need to ride out an emergency right there at home.
And then there's OPSEC, Operations Security. The guide points out that sharing your detailed survival plans might actually be weak OPIC. It suggests, being discreet, maybe to avoid becoming a target if things get really bad.
Right, makes sense. And then it gets into terms for potential human threats, like marauders, defined as people who collect guns instead of supplies, with the idea of raiding those who are prepared.
A sobering thought.
Yeah. And the Golden Horde.
Yeah.
Which it describes as the mass of unprepared city dwellers potentially pouring out of cities in a major emergency. It's just, outlining these possibilities the guy considers. We're just reporting what's in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the mindset, the initial steps, crucial stuff. But once you've assessed your risks, the next big question is what you actually need. Beyond like a basic first aid kit, what else might these unexpected emergencies throw at you? This is where the guide gets really interesting.
Yeah, this section is great because it shows survival isn't always about having the perfect specialized gear. It's about rethinking what you already have around you. There's this guy, Michael Hawk, former Green Beret medic. He talks about beyond first aid.
Yeah.
He suggests things like duct tape, great for closing wounds, making splints, even makeshift casts.
Fatigue casts. Wow.
Yeah.
And super glue. Excellent for small, deep wounds. You just hold it closed with tape while it dries. And something really unexpected for heavy bleeding. Tampons.
Tampons, really, apparently very effective for staunching bleeding and for getting out big splinters or, say, a nail. Good pair of needle nose pliers. It's all about that improvisational mindset, turning everyday stuff into lifesavers.
Those are definitely not in my standard kit, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. And speaking of using what's available, even modern conveniences, the guide shares this great story about Glenn Doreen. Right before Tropical Storm Irene hit in 2011, he joined Amazon Prime to get generators, water, batteries shipped fast right to his door.
Charmou.
Totally. It meant he could focus on boarding up windows and prepping his house instead of driving around to empty store shelves. That's smart resource management.
That's a brilliant use of modern tools for preparedness. Absolutely. Okay, so you've got your supplies. Now let's talk about protecting your biggest asset, your home, the property. The guide stresses prepping for high winds. They call it the secure missiles strategy.
Secure missiles. Sounds intense.
It just means going around your yard and tying down or bringing inside anything that could fly around. Lawn furniture, wheelbarrows, potted plants. You don't want your patio umbrella ending up through your neighbor's window. Or yours.
Good point.
Yeah.
It's easy to overlook that stuff until it's flying through the air. And sticking with the yard, the guide talks about how to guard your yard from looters. It suggests, chaining and locking expensive things outside generators, grills, gas cans, propane tanks to a tree or your deck.
Makes sense. Deterrence.
Exactly. And if you don't have a good anchor point, they suggest the dead man anchor method. You feed a chain through a concrete block and bury it a couple of feet deep. Pretty clever.
Practical stuff. Now, moving inside the house itself, there's really crucial advice on creating the garage fortress.
The garage fortress. Okay.
Yeah, a structural engineer, Emery Montague, advises creating a continuous load path. That means from the roof all the way down to the foundation, you use metal brackets and straps to literally tie the whole structure together, like making your house one big solid box. This makes it way less vulnerable to wind forces. It stops the wind from tearing pieces off individually.
That sounds like a serious upgrade. Real reinforcement.
Yeah.
Speaking of homes and hazards, trees, big concern in storms, right? The guide has this wonderfully practical method. They call it the "can that tree hit my house" test. Uses a yardstick.
Oh, yeah, I read that. Pretty neat.
You basically hold a yardstick out, use your fist to measure, and sight it against the tree. If the top of the tree lines up with the top of the yardstick before you get to your house line of sight-wise, you're clear. It's so simple, but seems like a really effective quick check.
It is. And if a tree does come down, knowing how to deal with it safely is absolutely critical. Carrie Shepard, a tree expert from Husqvarna, outlines different scenarios, like Case 1, tree leaning on your actual house. Usually, leave it for the insurance adjuster. Cutting it might cause more damage, but if it's on, say, a shed, you got to be extremely careful. That pressure can release unpredictably when you cut.
Okay, good distinction.
Case 2, tree snagged on a power line. Absolutely do not touch it. Full stop. Trees, especially wet ones, conduct electricity really well. Call the utility company.
Right. Don't be a hero there.
And Case 3, trees just down on the ground. Still need to be careful. Watch for branches under tension. They can snap back like a whip.
Yeah.
And understand how the log might twist or roll so you stay clear.
That's vital safety info. And it even breaks down 3 tree cuts everyone should know. These aren't just random hacks. They're about understanding the physics involved, right?
Exactly. There's a notch and fold for logs under pressure. Creates a hinge to control how it falls. Much safer. The offset cut and snap for small branches uses opposing forces for a clean break. And the spring pull release. That's for those bent over saplings or branches holding a lot of stored energy. Got to release that tension super carefully.
And they recommend specific gear too, right? Like boots, chaps.
Yeah. Essential logging gear, tall boots, chainsaw chaps, those things that jam the chain instantly if it hits your leg, and a proper forestry helmet with a face shield. Safety first.
Definitely. Okay, one more thing on home protection before we move on. Floods. The guide explains how to read a FEMA map.
Right. That's important for understanding your risk level. You go to msc.fema.gov, put in your address. Blue shaded areas mean a 100-year flood zone. That's a 1% chance of a significant flood any given year. Gray areas are 500-year flood risk. You can also check your home's elevation against the map's base flood elevation. See if you're above it.
Good to know where you stand, literally.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears. Sustenance and comfort in a crisis. Now, the guide throws out a challenge right away. He says, food is the least essential of the survival essentials.
Ah.
That probably sounds counterintuitive to a lot of people picturing pantries full of cans.
It does, but the perspective is about immediate priorities. You can survive weeks without food, right? But only days without water, maybe hours without shelter in extreme conditions. So while food is important for morale and energy, it's about prioritizing. The guide contrasts different approaches here, the prepper versus the casual survivalist.
Okay, how do they differ on food and heat?
Well, for food, the casual survivalist should have basics. A manual can opener, definitely. Flintstones, multivitamins, good point about nutrition getting overlooked, and maybe some sterno for heating things up. The prepper might go further, practicing hunting, local game. The guide even notes domesticated rabbits are less gamey than wild ones, a practical tip.
Huh. Never thought about gaminess in a survival context.
And for heat, the casual survivalist can try that clever trick with 2 nested ceramic flower pots upside down over a few candles. Creates a surprising amount of radiant heat.
I love that flower pot heater idea. So simple.
It is. The prepper, meanwhile, might install a full wood stove or even an outdoor wood furnace hooked into their heating system. A much bigger commitment, obviously.
Right, different levels of preparedness. The guide also has simple tips for building a food stash, doesn't it?
Yeah, just practical stuff. Buy an extra can of soup, bag of dried beans, pack of pasta each time you shop. It adds up easily, it doesn't break the bank. And managing the fridge if the power goes out, basically keep it closed as much as possible. If you have warning, organize perishables near the front for quick grabs.
Makes sense. Minimize heat loss. What about finding food outside? Foraging.
Yeah, the guide covers that too. It lists 3 you can eat. Wild watercress and chickweed, apparently you eat them like lettuce and burdock root, which needs cooking. But crucially, it lists 3 to avoid. And you absolutely need to know these. Poison ivy, obviously. Poison hemlock, that's the one that killed Socrates. It's lethal and easily mistaken for edible plants like wild carrots. And poison sumac, which gives an even worse rash than poison ivy. Knowing the difference is literally life and death.
Wow. Okay, memorize those avoidables.
Yeah.
The guide also talks about the art of firewood, right? You mentioned remembering collecting wood after Sandy.
Absolutely. That section really hits home. Having a reliable heat source, knowing how to process wood safely and efficiently, it's fundamental.
And it gets specific about the wood itself.
Yeah, it compares the heat content by type of wood using BTUs. Like oak is high at 27.6 million BTUs per cord, while something softer like willow is much lower, around 17.6. Helps you choose the best wood if you have options. And again, it mentions the right gear for logging boots, chaps, helmet. It's all part of that art.
Okay, let's pivot now to navigating unpredictable situations and some really critical safety lessons. The guide seems big on debunking myths and highlighting common, maybe overlooked dangers. What are some of those?
This section is fascinating because it covers dangers you might never think of as survival threats, but they can be deadly. Like vending machines. The guide says don't rock or try to tip them. Seriously, they cause 37 deaths between 78 and 95 from falling on people.
37 deaths from vending machines.
Yeah, it really makes you rethink what a hazard is, doesn't it? Or swimming near docks. Don't do it if there are plugged-in cords nearby. Risk of electric shock drowning, ESD. They mention a tragic case, Kyle McGonigal, silent killer in the water.
That's horrifying. Just awful. What else are people getting wrong?
Hiking shortcuts. Don't take one if you can't see where it ends. Apparently, cliffed-out hikers, people stuck on ledges, are 11% of search and rescue calls in Yosemite. The advice? Backtrack. Or use a satellite communicator like an inReach if you're really lost.
Good advice. Don't let pride get you killed.
Exactly. And generators. We mentioned power outages. Never run them in a garage or enclosed space. Carbon monoxide, hugely dangerous. Lots of deaths after storms like Sandy. Set them up far from the house. Use proper heavy-duty cords, or, better yet, a transfer switch installed by an electrician. And never, ever use those double-ended extension cords to plug your generator into a wall outlet. That's called backfeeding. It sends power back up the lines and can kill utility workers trying to restore power. Highly illegal and dangerous.
Wow, that backfeeding thing sounds incredibly dangerous. Okay, what else?
Glissading. Sliding down snowy slopes on your butt or feet. The guide says basically don't do it. Too easy to lose control, hit rocks, fall off cliffs. Cites a fatal accident on Mount Whitney. Just walk down carefully. And heat. Simple heat exhaustion or heat stroke. An average of 675 people die from heat-related causes in the U.S. each year. It mentions places like the Wave in Utah being deceptively dangerous. Be aware of the symptoms, hydrate, seek shade.
So many crucial don'ts there. Things people might do thinking it's fine or even helpful. Okay, what about more dynamic situations? Like driving trouble, hydroplaning.
Right. If your car starts hydroplaning floating on water, the guide says, ease off the gas pedal smoothly. Keep the steering wheel pointed where you want the car to go. Resist that urge to jerk the wheel or slam the brakes. That often makes it worse when the tires suddenly regain traction.
Gentle inputs.
That's it. Got it.
And basic navigation, if your GPS is out.
Yeah, classic map reading. The guide details thumbing the map. You orient the map, draw your route, fold the map along your route, and use your thumb to track your progress against landmarks as you move. This way, you don't have to keep unfolding and refolding. You just glance down at your thumb position. Estimate your travel time, too, and check it against landmarks you pass. Old school, but it works.
That's a great technique. Low-tech, high reliability. You know, one of the coolest parts of this guide is how it showcases human ingenuity. Just amazing, unconventional solutions people come up with.
Absolutely. The save your life with electronics hacks are particularly mind-blowing, really pushes the envelope. Like using the tiny wires inside a smartphone's Taptic engine, the little thing that makes it vibrate as sutures for stitching up a wound,
Get out. Seriously.
apparently thin and flexible enough, or making thermite. You can scrape magnesium shavings off a laptop case, pulverize them, mix with 3 parts rust, and that mixture burns hot enough to cut through metal, even concrete.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Wow. Like something out of a Guyver.
Totally. Or simpler stuff, like using the metal back casing of a tablet as a makeshift griddle over a fire, and turning a headlamp into a lantern. Just wrap the strap around a big, clear plastic jug, like a milk jug filled with water. It diffuses the light beautifully, makes ambient light instead of a focused beam.
Those are seriously creative, turning high-tech junk into survival tools. And there are simpler ones too, right?
Oh yeah, crayons. A single crayon can burn for up to half an hour, makes a decent emergency candle. Or, get this, a cotton string stuck into a can of shortening, like Crisco. That can burn as a candle for up to 45 days.
45 days from Crisco. That's amazing.
Sustained light, maybe a tiny bit of heat too. And water purification, using plain, unscented household bleach, just a 1/4 teaspoon per gallon of water. Wait 30 minutes. Sniff it if you smell faint chlorine, it's probably good. If not, add a tiny bit more, wait another 15 minutes. Simple chemistry, saving lives.
Okay. Bleach for water. Good one to remember.
Okay.
Now, what about medical myths? You mentioned those earlier. Seems like bad advice could be really dangerous.
Totally. The guide tackles a few common ones head-on. Ticks. The myth is you should burn them off or use petroleum jelly or nail polish. Wrong. That actually makes them burrow deeper. The skill is to use dull tweezers grasped close to the skin and pull gently and steadily straight out.
Okay, no burning ticks. Got it. Seizures.
Big myth. Shove a spoon or wallet in their mouth so they don't swallow their tongue. Fact. It's physically impossible to swallow your tongue. Trying to force something in their mouth can cause injury, broken teeth, airway obstruction. The skill is to roll them gently onto their side, the recovery position. Clear the area of hard or sharp objects. Don't restrain them. And call for medical help.
Right. Protect, don't interfere. What about getting impaled by something, like a stick?
The instinct might be to yank it out immediately, but the skill depends. If it looks like it hit a major artery or if it pierced the chest or abdomen, leave it in. Only remove bits clearly protruding outside the main wound. Stabilize it and get to a hospital fast. Removing it could cause massive bleeding or organ damage. If it's a smaller wound, not in those critical areas, then yes, carefully remove it, wash the wound thoroughly, apply pressure.
Knowing when not to act is key there. Okay, the guide also includes some incredible tales of survival, real stories.
Yeah, these really illustrate the principles. There's Kevin Deepsick's account of Cuba's maker movement, how decades of necessity basically forced incredible ingenuity. People keeping ancient cars running with homemade parts, figuring out how to live without things we take for granted, like a working fuel gauge. He even mentions his old Popular Mechanics magazines were almost confiscated as propaganda because a cover said, "How you can join the revolution."
Ah, that's ironic. Shows how resourcefulness itself can seem revolutionary.
Then there's Ananov's helicopter Arctic survival. A Russian pilot flew across the Arctic in a small helicopter carrying extra fuel inside the cockpit in jerrycans. Had a forced landing in the freezing Hudson Strait, survived for a day on the ice floe before the Canadian Coast Guard icebreaker, the Pierre Radisson, could reach him. Incredible planning and resilience.
Just amazing endurance. And what about that tornado story?
Oh, the tornado chasing one. Tim Samaras and Carl Young, tragically later killed. But this story involves Casey and his tornado intercept vehicle, the TIV. They ended up inside a massive, dust-shrouded EF5 tornado near Greensburg, Kansas, driving it in reverse using telephone poles flashing by as their only guide to stay on the road. Just unbelievable.
Inside an EF5, in reverse. That's terrifying.
The guide also explains the signs to look for. Radar signs like the hook echo showing rotation or the velocity couplet, that red-green signature of air moving towards and away from the radar, and ground signs, towering thunderheads, wall clouds, beaver tails, that eerie silence right before it hits.
Gives you chills just hearing about it. And there's a bear attack story, too.
Yeah, a personal account. Someone fought off a bear. They credited sheer strength and, interestingly, a thick coat that prevented the bear's teeth from breaking the skin. But the key takeaway wasn't just luck, it was learning from it. Afterwards, they started carrying a shotgun and bear spray whenever they went into the woods, adapting based on experience.
So survival isn't just the event, it's the learning afterwards, too. What ties all these stories together for you?
Well, connecting it back, maybe it's the enduring importance of communication. When everything else fails, the guide mentions consider the ham radio. Jason Pfeiffer talks about digging out his old handheld radio, how useful it can be, not just for major emergencies, but even for just idle chatter when the cell networks are down. It's a resilient, low-tech connection.
That's a great point. Connection is key. Well, we have certainly unpacked a huge amount of practical knowledge today from the Popular Mechanics Essential Survival Guide. I mean, from fortifying your garage to making a candle out of Crisco, understanding tree physics, knowing not to burn ticks.
Yeah.
It's an amazing range.
It really is. And I think the main takeaway isn't about being scared. It's about feeling empowered, knowing you have options, knowing you can be adaptable, you can use ingenuity. That reduces fear,
Yeah.
right? It makes challenges feel more solvable, whatever the threat level.
Absolutely. We often focus on the what supplies do I need, but this deep dive really showed us the how and the why. How simple acts like learning those tree cuts or collecting firewood or figuring out that flower pot heater, how they become part of resilience. It's not just about surviving. It's about appreciating your own capabilities, maybe even the world around you, differently. So here's a thought to leave you with. What overlooked art in your own daily life, some simple skill you haven't thought much about, could actually become your next surprising survival skill.